For decades, they grinned on stage, but Marie and Donny behind the scenes. By 2019, Osmond was disintegrating after 11 years of performing in Las Vegas. They couldn't even take pictures with each other. And greetings were distinct promotional events. Materials were shot separately. What though the lawsuit was never seen by the public? Revealed all the accusations of greed. The deceit and deception that tore split up America's most well-known brotherly pair. This is the tale of how the United States' favorite siblings turned into strangers. Marie. On October 13, 1959, Osmond was born and she was the seventh of 9 children in Ogden, Utah. Kids and the house's sole girl crowded with boys, yet Marie's childhood were distinct as the boys worked out and performed when she was at home. Mother, music was a constant in the background of Marie's everyday existence. She once claimed she was unable to recall a single day of youth without the sound of music or being worked on, despite the fact that she wasn't performing, but she was soaked in the music. Shared a unique connection with Donny. They were constantly playing together, laughing, and driving their mother insane at times. The Osmond narrative, with its untamed vigor but had a severe twist at the beginning. Verl and Tom, the first 2 kids, were severe hearing issues from birth. George and Olive Osmond were cautioned by doctors. They even advised against having any more children. Them to enroll the boys in a school. Olive, however, declined because she thought something more powerful than physicians' faith. She taught her sons at home and decided to continue expanding her family. 7 extra children were born as a result of the choice. Into the world, each one with a typical. Ironically, the hearing was Verl and Tom's problems with hearing that forced the family to. The guys entered show business and began to perform. In 1958, in an effort to gather funds for hearing assistance, what started out as a need quickly expanded into something even more significant. Their father George was an expert at running the house. He had been a sergeant in the United, brought that same thing to the States Army. Punishment at home mornings began with really on a bugle the announcement of meals with sound-offs in the military manner. If you were, you received a beating for being impolite, but George had affection despite his strictness. Donny remembered the formative years as plenty of humor in spite of the regulations. George demanded excellence not only in conduct, but also in their performances. Every action and note needed to be perfect. The family company started out tiny with recitals at the local church. Alan was just 2 A's when he began. Fortunate experience visiting Disneyland in the everything changed for the lads in their late 50s. Were seen on Main Street singing, and they were shortly asked to participate in. They joined the Andy on national TV. Williams' performance, and little Donny made his singing, "You Are My Sunshine," for the first time at the age of 5, their success quickly rose. However, it came with a price. Rehearsals touring took over in place of the school childhood, but financially they were able to flourish when Marie took a chance at the age of 13. Recorded a Dolly Parton's Coat demo. What MGM Records enjoyed about Of Many Colors was as soon as they heard it, they signed her. After taking a plane to Nashville, she had her first 9 tracks were recorded during the session, and her focus, and everyone was astounded at the preparation. 1973 marked the start of her solo career. Paper Roses arrived when she was barely 14 years old. Release it became the #1 hit right away on the country chart, number for the United States, #2 on the pop chart, and #5 on the. She became the youngest woman in the UK. A country musician will make their #1 debut, and her CD came out in the US, and topped the national charts, demonstrating that Marie wasn't a one-hit wonder. Followed by other hits in My the World's Little Corner and Whose Apologies Now, the duet era began. She and Donny collaborated with I'm Leaving It All. It Was Up to You, which performed well, and they retained recording songs together, such as Morning Deep Purple and The Mountainside maintained them in the charts. In the interim, when Donny was 12, he recorded One Bad Apple. Something clicked, and he stopped singing like a machine and began to think like a. For the first time, the musician wasn't simply reciting phrases because he felt them. That minor change would transform him from a pretty child on stage who develops into a serious artist, and that's when the true mayhem started. As the 1970s got underway, Donny wasn't simply renowned, he was a teenage idol. People referred to Osmond Mania as a hit. Particularly difficult in the UK, girls cried out his name, crowded hotels and chased his automobile, and filled every location he went to. It was so powerful that Donny had to conceal it once. Trying to get away, beneath a restaurant table, a rush of admirers. In 1973 alone, the 13 of Osmond's songs were charting in the UK. It was his hysteria, not hype. The music at concerts was so loud that it got overpowered by cries. He even recalled performing in Nashville, where the loudness of the fans made it seem as though the sound could shatter the walls. Magazines were obsessed with him. His face was all over the place. Either Tiger Beat was adored by 16 girls, and he was hated by their brothers. That combination of Donny's life was affected by both love and hate in ways that most individuals didn't see during his. The naysayers were yelled at by supporters who loved them. At the age of 15, Donny sharpened their knives. Received one of the most critical evaluations in Rolling Stone magazine's history of music, claimed that the day was the worst in rock. He never forgot the day he was born. Still a child attempting to discover who he was, all of a sudden the most popular music the world's magazine was hailing his. It broke him that his very existence was a mistake. He later referred to it as the worst type of bullying. Continued beyond that point, and his name became a joke in the 1980s. Music business. When guitarist Phil de Leppard's Colin performed on Donny's, his name has to be taken off the record. The credit, since nobody desired to be connected to him despite sold-out performances the following day. He was torn down by newspapers. Cheers at night with that kind of contrast. Morning insults left wounds that didn't quickly vanish, but the harm wasn't only emotional, but it also became bodily. Donny was strolling across Manchester at night into a hotel when a fan rushed him. She carried a pen, a book of autographs, and came full force at him, but she didn't mean injury. She merely desired a time with her hero. But when she gave him a pen embrace, stabbed him in the eye, and right afterward, a camera flash turned off, burnt into his eye, which was already injured, and made a lasting impression on his retina. Donny nearly lost his sight. Still considers it today. The scar still serves as a reminder of how swing in a moment from love to danger. But rather than placing the blame on the girl, he demonstrated empathy by saying, "She didn't know." He stated, "She was just overwhelmed." In the meantime, Marie's trip was also full of difficulties. When she was already well known on the popular program Donny and Marie, but the real dazzling lights and joyful performances, something far more sinister was taking place. The studio's managers weren't merely. Marie was already harsh and rude. Slim, weighing just 103 pounds, yet they said she was too overweight one day, so they brought her to a parking area and offered her a cruel decision: either lose 10 pounds or the show cancellation. But they didn't stop there. She was deemed an embarrassment by them. To her relatives that she ought to cease shoving food into her chubby face wasn't merely judgment, it was psychological torturing. Marie is desperate to maintain her employment. Began to starve herself. Occasionally, she refused to eat for 3 days prior to the shoot. She just drank lemon water at other times, combined with maple and cayenne pepper syrup in order to keep it under 93 pounds. Wasn't safe, nor was it healthy, but she felt imprisoned by the pressure. She endured years of being with her yo-yo dieting cycle after cycle, attempting every diet she could discover, but it took her decades to finally comprehend what had transpired with her wasn't just it was abuse, pressure, and it had a lasting impact. Scars, but the anguish wasn't limited to that. Prior to the cameras, she carried long, and Marie's celebrity was concealing another traumatic secret. At the age of 8 or 9 years old, she suffered sexual abuse at the hands of. The abuse was committed by those her parents trusted. So powerful that it fundamentally altered her. Seeing males made her feel ill. She didn't even know that she couldn't trust them. How to deal with their confusion caused her to doubt everything, especially her own identity. She began to ponder if she is gay. It's not because desire, but because to the fact that the abuse had ended her capacity to recognize who she was. Marie initially talked about this feeling. In her autobiography and subsequent discussions, she talked with a trembling voice, yet she was at last, I am prepared to reveal the truth about healing. Took a lot of time, and despite her family wasn't the source of the abuse. Did she have good men in her life? Her father and brothers assisted her. Start to trust once more. They demonstrated to her that not all guys were dangerous or cruel. She began to rebuild gradually through. Despite all that suffering, she continued to look for. She dated Andy Gibb when she was a young celebrity. Along with the Bee Gees' youngest brother. Despite his charisma and talent, he used narcotics. Grasped him while Marie observed powerless as his condition deteriorated, and she had to leave in the end because it broke her heart. Afterwards, she also validated dating the television personality Eric Estrada from Chips, despite the fact that she never discussed marriage wasn't simple either in that chapter. In 1982, she wed Stephen Craig, but it didn't last. 3 years later, they got divorced. She wed music producer Brian in 1986. Blossel together, they had 7 kids. However, the partnership had its own battles. In 1998, while fighting they parted ways due to postpartum depression. They formally got divorced in 2007. In retrospect, Marie acknowledged that she had hurried into the partnership prior to knowing herself completely. Then, something unexpected occurred. She reconnected with her after decades apart. Stephen Craig, the first husband, this time they both had different circumstances. Altered, and they managed to make it function in some way. Donny and his sister Marie in 1974 recorded I'm Letting You Handle Everything. Wasn't brand new, but their rendition was successful. Distinct, with a little country pop vibe. And it swiftly rose through the rankings. Attaining the 4th position on the Billboard #1 on the Adult and Hot 100 Modern chart. That one didn't have the Umbrella song backing it up. Just grew popular. It became the crucial element that paved the way for TV fame. There was no denying chemistry, and it didn't remain undetected. They had the opportunity to guest host the Mike Douglas Show for a week. Silverman, ABC TV's president, while he was observing, he noticed something. They have a unique, attractive quality. And amiable. He took a chance and provided the adolescent pair with their own. Donny's primetime variety show was just 18. Marie was just 16 years old. Had previously presented a variety show, was audacious yet successful when Donny, and in January, Marie made her debut. It attracted about 14 million viewers in 1976. Week, the show immediately gained popularity. Shot in Los Angeles, but subsequently relocated to the Utah studio of the Osmond family. That move occurred after they battled for additional artistic authority, but while they were winning on-screen, items behind the scenes weren't as glitzy. Marie, a teenager, was subjected to severe pressure to have a specific appearance. Producers her weight calling was frequently ridiculed, causing her shame and even endangering other cast members' employment and crew. In the event that she didn't reduce one, the producer informed her that he was only attempting to assist her in improving her unhealthy eating habits. She developed risky habits as a result of pressure. Occasionally going days without eating anything but water with cayenne and lemon juice. She became so faint from the pepper and maple syrup. She was barely able to complete the dance numbers. According to her own statement, she felt like the ugly duckling, particularly when standing next to glitzy celebrities. Even if the show was popular, the family's money was kept under wraps. Crumbling Jimmy Osmond years later indicated that they had lost 80 to 100 million due to terrible financial choices. They had dependable advisors who mishandled everything that belonged to the family, with the belief that it would shield them, but it almost destroyed. George, their father, had attempted to safeguard their future by making investments in different companies, but a lot of those, the single thing that stopped the agreement from failing, real estate, kept them from completely collapsing. George had ensured that they had some property, and the proceeds from the sale helped pay for their obligations when all else crumbled. The last blow was delivered by Donny's something far more intimate love life. He got married on May 8, 1978. Deborah Glenn, but he kept it a secret. He had known what it would do for 3 years. To his perception of teenage girls in the Donny was viewed by everyone as their ideal partner. Moment they found out he was married, the obsession started to diminish, ratings dropped, the show scrambled to keep alive, removing well-liked parts and adding disco numbers, even altering the name of the show to however. The Osmond family show's magic was gone when the May finale of the show in 1979, the twins weren't the ones who made the decision to cut the power. It was the network. Following the conclusion of their variety show in Donny, Osmond's career collapsed in 1979. Almost immediately, he was among the world's biggest teenage idols, but all of a sudden, nobody wanted to perform his music. He was disregarded by radio stations and record labels. He had more top 40, but they weren't interested. Hits by 1978 compared to Michael Jackson, but Donny, none of that mattered anymore. Later acknowledged that he felt imprisoned. He was viewed as uncool because of his personal past. Trapped in his adolescent persona, that pressure remained with him till the middle of the 1990s. Stress became a darker thing. Debilitating panic episodes. He was ultimately given a social anxiety diagnosis disturbance. He claimed that there were times prior to performing live, when he would have preferred to die than to perform for his wife. Debbie once hurried him to the medical facility after he trembled violently in bed. His sister Marie saw everything and recalled how far back Donny used to sit by himself in the dressing room is having trouble keeping himself together. He continued. Between 1992 to 1998, Donny was the lead. In the stunning Technicolor, and Joseph Dream coat has been used more than 2,000 times in Canada and the United States. In 1999 even collaborated with Joan on a movie adaptation. Richard Attenborough and Colin's position helped him resurrect his career, but it also pushed the boundaries of his uneasiness. The pressure of performing each night was vicious. Once at a Las Vegas performance, Donny could hardly stand because he was so sick. Nevertheless, he persevered through the performance. He fell when the curtain came down. He had to be carried off his stage by stage personnel. Outfit provided almost little protection, and he frequently performed with kids, making him even more susceptible to disease. One item assisted him in changing his attitude. A discussion with the director. He was informed by Stephen Pimlet, though the theater serves as a venue for dream in front of others, and you are responsible for that dream. The notion provided Donny a memento to cherish. In December 2024, this time, he will take the stage again, acting as the Pharaoh rather than Joseph, as Donny worked to reconstruct. Marie was discreetly reviving herself. After their performance, she also had difficulties. But in the middle of the 1980s, she went back to country music. Was a wise choice. Jim Fogelong is an executive from Nashville. Partnered with her after signing her to Capitol Records. She and Dan Seal's duet, Meet Me, became a #1 hit in Montana, the U.S. and made it into the top 20. Additionally, it won them the Vocal Duo of the CMA Awards that year, followed by You Can't Stop Your Heart from Beating. Top charting album that restored her. The song, Read My Lips, created an impression on the map. The top 5 songs from her upcoming album I Only You were wanted for 37 weeks in the country charts and achieved yet another #1 duet, this time, You're Still New to Me. Marie's recovery with Paul Davis earned her nomination as a top female ACM vocalist, and she even received a Grammy nomination. Dan Seal's duet She returned, and she was in the lead this time. In 1998, television icon Dick Clark developed. He had an idea to bring Donny and Marie has returned to hosting daytime discussion shows. They were both aware of their hesitation. May return them to the same picture. They had struggled to get away, but they agreed with the new Donny and Marie program introduced in September 1998. It had a live house band, well-known producers, and much hype. but the ratings didn't despite the fact that the siblings were nominated for the 2000 Daytime Emmys and the show was cancelled in 2001 after 2 seasons. It was a second unsuccessful try to bring back their brilliance from the 1970s, but not all 10 years later, Donny and Marie were missing. Started a 6-week residency in Las Vegas at the Flamingo, which was meant to be brief. Instead, it lasted for 11 years. By the end of 2019, it was among the most prosperous phases of their professions when once more, Marie's music career slowed down. Late in the 1980s, she discovered a new interest. She had grown up with 8 dolls. Her getaway consisted of dolls and brothers. Olive, Marie's mother, ensured Marie had her own. By the 1990s, Marie's small world had almost 700 dolls were gathered from various the world, and then the LL made an offer. Dolls will be sold by Knickerbocker Company on Marie from QVC agreed, but only if she was able to participate completely, but she didn't want to put her name on something that she didn't do. Believe that her choice paid well. Contributed to the creation of about 200 dolls. Company was so prosperous that she and her spouse purchased the business and changed the name to Marion. One of her favorite, the Olive May, was a valued creation. Doll that Marie herself sculpted and called it was kept in Olive's curio after her mother cabinet until she died. Sarah, Marie's niece, received it. Elizabeth, a nurse, had provided in her last year. Olive was more than just a Marie Osmond's business was personal. Always appeared to be the image of strength, grinning with enthusiasm on stage and beside her brother Donny at all times. But there was a woman behind that picture. More suffering than most people ever knew following the birth of her 7th child. In 1999, Marie's child Matthew fell into